All right, gentlemen, again, God is putting us to the test right here in Proverbs 1, verse 6. It's going to break down and give us a little teaser that wisdom isn't always as straightforward as we would want it to be. It's not always as easy as, hey, follow this 1, 2, 3 steps, and then you're going to be lined in. You know what I mean? So let's get straight into it. To understand a proverb and a figure, the words of the wise and their riddles. That's a lot to take in. First off, proverb, we already learned that. It's going to be pithy sayings, words of wisdoms, very short, something, you could just really grasp onto. And then figure, that's going to be a figure of speech, something symbolic, interpretive language, don't beat around the bush or, take a penny, leave a penny, whatever it may be. That's going to be a figure of speech that's relatable. And it kind of reminds me of how Jesus always used parables that the apostles and people that he was witnessing to can relate to. You noticed how he used a lot of agriculture, and he talked about, the seeds falling on soft or hard soil. And he talked about, being fishers of men and everything that was relatable back in that day and age. And I think nowadays we really need to take heed on to the understanding of wisdom that is being shown or spoken to in our lives. Just above Proverbs 1:6, we were in Proverbs 1:5, obviously, and it talked about us increasing in learning, increasing in wisdom and in knowledge. So it kind of sets you up that in having wise counsel around you, and it kind of sets you up saying, if you're going to understand a proverb, figure of speech, you need to understand the words of the wise. You need to really listen and have an open ear to this wisdom that's going to be brought upon you. It's not always going to be straightforward, direct, and instantly you're going to know and hear it and be able to apply it throughout your life. It's going to be something you're going to have to listen to, repeat, meditate on, really think, what did he say about that sermon? What did he mean about these scriptures, or the example he gave on being a godly husband or being a godly man in this world of chaos and lawlessness? What do you mean by maybe we should filter the things we look at? Maybe it's not always the thoughts that come into our mind, but our surroundings that we can control. Am I watching that show because it's actually interesting? Or am I watching it because, I know once in a while it's probably not going to have nudity, but it's going to have a lot of attractive women and, revealing outfits or whatever it may be. And, I'm not looking at the bad stuff, but it's just enough to feed my flesh. Is that something we're being in a predicament of and kind of playing with fire? Oh, well, it's a show about, nature, or it's a show about sports and surfing, but majority of it is, women dressed provocatively. As men, we know when we're playing with fire. And sometimes the world will try to wrap it up in this, nice, calm, passive fashion. But if that's something you're struggling with or something you find yourself thinking about, throughout the day in the bad heart about it and bad lustful heart, maybe we should take wisdom, the words of wisdom from men of God that have been in that situation, that have been around temptation, but have been faithful to their wives the past 20, 30 years. Or men that have just abstained from sexual immorality in their young age, men in their 20s, mid-20s, late 20s. And I know men like that, very few, of course, but a lot of times we find men of God that call themselves Christian, and they just have this presence where they're dating this girl and it's been so many years, and we all kind of know, yeah, we know they're probably sleeping around, but they're going to get married anyway, right? And it just goes to show that when we allow the world's standards to come into our lives, that's when our excellence and our life of gratitude unto God just gets lower and lower. A lot of Christians will be like, oh, well, they're going to get married anyway. Or you ever meet a couple in the church and they're really young and they've been dating a while, and out of the blue, so-and-so gets pregnant, and you're like, oh, what? How did that happen? And, we're not here to condemn anyone and make them, feel bad or guilty. But if you think about it, I majority blame the guy. If he had more self-control, more discipline, I'm not saying the girl didn't have anything to be involved with it, but if he knew what predicament he was getting himself into, if they're always alone on dates, going back to each other's homes or whatever, staying up really late, talking to each other, you have to be very foolish or naive to think that nothing was going to eventually happen. I mean, we're designed to be attracted to that stuff. We're designed to have that burning fire and desire of the, opposite sex. But it's only right when it's applied in the realm of marriage, that covenant we make before God. And it's just unfortunate that it has to start there. It has to start with a broken starting point, especially when they're considered Christians, but they allow themselves to fall in that area. It's very avoidable. Not saying it's super easy, but there are things we can do, and there are men of God out there that I know personally that waited to their wedding day, and they had multiple opportunities to give in and just say, hey, well, you're gonna end up marrying her anyway. So it just makes you think, where is the character trait in there? Where's a man of integrity behind closed doors when he's able to resist that temptation, and not only that, set himself up for success? Hey, we're gonna go out on a date. We're probably not gonna be alone though. We'll be able to walk in a public area, and maybe we come in 2 cars, or I could pick you up or whatever. But we know if that's your weakness, you want to do as much as you can. And if you really can't take it, the other alternative is maybe take time away or be really serious and consider marriage. Because it's like, you're gonna date this girl for so long, and you're just gonna continually tempt yourself for 2, 3, 4 years. I mean, realistically, do you think you're that strong? So I think it's just something to consider for a lot of young men that I see falling into that sin in that category when we're praying in private and they're in their early 20s and go, oh yeah, me and my girlfriend, this and that, and she's kind of saved, or she is saved, she believes in God, but and it's like they're playing this game where they love the thought of God, they love the thought of eternity and Christ and being a Christian, but they love playing with that fire. You know what I mean? That's what I love about Proverbs. It's telling us we're gonna have to be able to take these teachings and advice from men of God that have lived it out. So if I'm a young buck, or if I were to start over, I would continually seek advice from men that waited into their marriage date, that didn't defile things before they were married. I would listen to those men and I say, hey, what did you do to you and your wife now to not fall into sin before you're married? I mean, realistically, temptation's everywhere, like, what did you do? And more than likely, they're gonna do something that maybe is out of the ordinary. Maybe something that's a little like, oh, it sounds a little prude or legalistic or whatever. But they're gonna do that because they're gonna do whatever it takes to avoid that situation. It's the same for us married men. I'm not gonna find myself alone with the opposite sex in a car or vehicle unless she's like extremely old or, really unattractive and, my buddy knows what's up or whatever. But even then, it's not the fact that you may do something, you may not do anything. It's how it looks too. What are you representing being alone with all these women and you're a married man, Yeah, maybe she's not a 10, she's not super attractive, fit or whatever, takes care of herself. But what are you doing to her? What if you're tempting her? What if you're causing her to lust or to stumble, Aren't we supposed to be aware of other people's struggles and be that light, be that example, The attention you may be giving a girl that probably never gets attention from a guy like you that's very attractive, successful, maybe you have your own business or you're doing really well at work. It may blow her away that you're even giving her that time of day, What does that throw in? And guys, don't act like you're not like that either. When a beautiful hot girl talks to you, you get all So we got to really think about that. That's why men of God, if we're continually taking that type of wisdom, we got to really know, in these scenarios, am I doing the best of my ability to not make someone stumble or fall? And right away, we might say, hey, it's not my fault if she finds me attractive. It's not my fault if this and that. Okay. But are you looking out for that individual? Whether they're a man of God, a woman of God or not, are you looking out for it? Or are you feeding the flesh and liking that attention, Playing with that fire. Well, I'm not watching, a super provocative, perverted show, but I know, the women are going to be in revealing tops and bikinis here and there. But I'm watching it for the housing and then the real estate and all that. I'm just watching it for that. Or watching it for the action or for the dialogue. Or it's very funny comedy, So let's take that consideration. Let's take those wise sayings from men of God and really contemplate on what they mean. Really try to apply them and work for it. It could be challenging, but sometimes we need to be better listeners than speakers and people talking and yapping all the time. How can we better hear and take heed of these teachings that men of God are showing us, or the Word of God is showing us? We get further and further into Proverbs. It's going to talk about, Lady Wisdom, and then it's also going to talk about the other lady, the harlot, the one in the streets that are waiting for you, waiting to entice you. saying she's set up, incense and myrrh and olives and oils, and they want to drink wine and drink the night away, and her husband's gone. He's taking money with him. He won't be back till this and that time. What about those women? If we're going to be wise, if we're going to set ourselves up for success, we're going to have integrity. We're going to have the wisdom to not put ourselves in those situations, and we really have to be responsible in that sense. We have to be able to say, you know what, this is going to come off a little weird, but I'm going to do it to protect my name, to protect God's name and what I represent. If you have a problem drinking, not that it's wrong, you could drink, but getting drunk, I believe, is wrong. If you have a problem drinking, you probably shouldn't be hanging out with your buddies that are getting hammered every weekend, watching the game or just socializing, talking to women. And let's not act like married men don't do that. It's pretty normal. Married men and women do that. But you probably shouldn't be around that environment. Probably shouldn't be around a bunch of young single women in an environment where everyone's drinking. When we hear these sayings and we hear these riddles or whatever, and sometimes they do require effort, we need to really, when we're in that situation where we're set up with a temptation or something, and we're thinking that split second, like, should I go, or should I send that text or make that call or meet her up privately? You're gonna think of that saying that one wise man said, like, hey, you know what? Don't play with fire, bro. I've seen a lot of men fall because of that. I see a lot of men saying, I'm just gonna flirt a little bit. Ain't that bad, I'm not fornicating. I'm just looking at stuff on my phone. It's different, It's not physically. I'm not fornicating. I'm just looking. I'm just lusting. Okay? Is that your standard? Is that God's standard? Is that the world's standard? Either way, if it's not the standard of Christ, standard of God, and how to live righteously, probably be pretty foolish to continue in that act, huh? So here's an example of a riddle or something that could be said to you. Imagine the wise man that you hang out with, the pastor, a leader, a mentor, discipler. He says, a soft answer will turn away wrath. And you hear it and you're probably like, all right, it's pretty obvious, I guess. And then you're in a scenario, you're at home, and your wife says something to you, it triggers you and ticks you off because, we lack self-control and we're easily triggered. And it's not even that disrespectful. She just asks you something, a question that you don't like hearing about, or whatever. She brings up a bill or a payment or something to do with the kid's school. Or it could be a coworker, whatever. And you're triggered, right? And right away you snap. You go, what do you mean? Like, hey, why'd you ask me about that? I told you not to bring that up anymore. Or, hey, it's not my fault. Don't try to blame me. Don't put words in my mouth. What did you say to me? You see that response? Immediately impulsive, in the flesh, lacking control. I've been there. I've done that plenty of times. You know what it shows? It shows I'm living in the flesh. It doesn't say that I'll never snap, I'll never be bad. But if I'm continually doing that, it's showing my wife, my coworker, whatever, man, this guy lacks control. He's easily that triggered. And then think of the ripple effect it creates from there. You and your wife end up having this long, drawn-out argument, bringing up stuff from the past. You guys are bitter, resentful, and you're the leader of the home, and you're the one mainly at fault. I'm not saying the wives can't run their mouth, vice versa, both sides, but you were the one that could have stopped in that moment. Or you were with a coworker and they said something that triggered you right away, like, hey, that wasn't my fault on the project. I didn't drop the ball there. That was marketing. That was sales. That was operations. That wasn't me. How about you say, you know what, Jason? Why don't we let's look into that. Let's see where it went wrong in that delivery to that customer. You know what? I didn't catch that. Let me dig into it. How about I get back to you in about 20-30 minutes, or why don't we reconvene in an hour? Does 2 p.m. work for you? Yeah, that actually works out great. You get to walk away. You guys get to cool off. Figure things out, because he's probably feeling the heat too. Maybe his name's on that project and you're connected with that, and operationally something fell through the loop and the customer didn't get the product or service they wanted at the pricing or the delivery time, whatever it may be. and you're trying to figure it out. Like, man, I thought I told so-and-so from marketing and from operations or logistics to get that, we confirmed it in Salesforce, everything was there in the queue. And then maybe on his end, he's like, I submitted it, but it wasn't approved. Who knows? You guys reconvene, and you find out it's neither your faults. You guys actually did do everything right. But because you responded in a gentle manner, you avoided all this chaos, whether it's with your wife or with your coworker. You avoided all this chaos. With the wife, you're like, you know what, babe, let me look at that bill. I'm finishing something up right here, but can we connect on that maybe like 10 minutes? Is that all right? Most likely she's gonna say yes, right? You got a woman of God, you're leading her, you're leading the home, it's a biblical home. Most likely she's gonna say yes. Even if she's not. Most people respond well with soft replies, gentle replies, and your coworker the same. Yeah, you know what? No problem, man. We'll reconvene at 2 p.m. It's perfect for me. And you avoid all this situational drama. I feel like if more people weren't so impulsive, didn't reply so quickly in the flesh, there would be a massive amount of problems avoided. Not everything, not every situation. Sometimes we may need to be direct and may even be harsh. Someone's, yelling or cussing at my wife or endangering my kids. You better believe I'm gonna reply in a harsh way or defensive way to protect my family. Now that's a different scenario. But if someone says something to me and I'm triggered, or maybe initially I'm offended, maybe I should take that advice from that wise person, that riddle, the wise man of counsel that I have in my life, someone that's mentoring me. Maybe I should pause and say, hey, you know what? First and foremost, I'm a man of God. Am I going to react in the flesh? Or am I going to be patient, kind, and loving and react in the spirit? This isn't about getting walked all over, being wimpy, not speaking your mind, not being a man, standing up in society, and just representing yourself and defending yourself. This is about how to respond to those. How to be that light, how to be that example in and out of your home, in and out of church. You see, on Sundays, we all show up, our Sunday best. We're all looking good. We got our little boost of coffee. Got our favorite seat, third, fourth row, whatever, wherever you sit. Your favorite worship songs playing. Hey, Bill. Hey, what's up? Oh, yeah, amen, brother. Nothing wrong with that. It's all good, We should be like that. But it's not just that scenario. It's our way we show up to church, arguing in the car, watching something bad, gossiping, joking inappropriately. And then when we come home, how we live in our life. We're honoring God in our actions, in our thoughts, in our abilities to apply His word into our lives to benefit others. Or are we just selfishly living? That when we get to Sunday, we're more selfishly just taking and consuming. Oh, let me get my coffee, let me get my drink, let me get my seat, and hear my sermon, my favorite song. Boom, bounce, done. Is that what God has called us to be? Men that lack self-control, men that make it about themselves. This is whether you're young, middle, or old. Again, Proverbs is written for all types of men of God. I believe Proverbs is so specific. It is so clear. I keep saying it, but it's like a dummy-proof system on to live a life that honors God, but also brings you so much blessing in the real world. And it makes sense. It's from God. Brought down to men to interpret and to write and give us that knowledge and that wisdom. It makes sense why a lot of this works so well. All of it, actually. Maybe you won't apply every scenario when it talks about kings and bribes and all that. Like, oh, dude, I ain't a government official. I don't run a country or whatever. Yeah, that part I get. But majority of it, our finances, our mind, our thought, our temptations, our self-control, working hard, prosperity, whatever it may be, we need to really, all of us, when we read God's word, we need to learn how to apply it daily and live it out. There's no shortcuts. There's no stagnation where we just stop and that's it. Oh, I made it. It's like fitness. If you stop working out, you lose your muscle. You gain the weight. If you stop eating right and really taking account to what you're eating and not over-consuming, you're going to gain weight. You're going to go back to that sloppy lifestyle, Sitting down on the couch, watching the game for 4 hours, eating, a large pizza and a couple of 6 packs of beer, you and your buddies and your homies. It just doesn't represent a man of God, in my opinion. That slothfulness, just going in gun ho. I gotta eat, gotta drink, gotta watch, gotta consume, gotta spend. It just doesn't represent godliness, in my viewpoint. And I think God's either. Little bit of sleep, little bit of slumber, a little bit of folding of the hands. A robber will come to you like a vagabond. Right? Just things like that. When it talks about a drunk man being on top of the mast of the ship, like that's the worst place to be, because you're gonna feel the whole sway, versus at the base where it's more control. You know what that feeling is, right? Like, if you ever been drunk? Fortunately, I have. You're so drunk, you lay down, everything's spinning, the room is spinning, you try to put your foot down, all these tricks, drink water, whatever it may be, walk it off. You get that instant regret. It's like regret, and you know you did something wrong. Oh man, I feel sick, I feel hungover. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Why did I act like that? Why did I react? Why did I respond that way? It's because as men, we're focused on feeding our flesh first, then living in spirit and serving others. Every time we feed our flesh first, it is only for the benefit of ourselves and not the benefit of others. We should be doing the opposite and deny our flesh and find the benefit for others in our life. Whether it's your coworker, job, whatever it may be. We need to find that. All right, love you guys. See you in the next one.